not just think about, the main character, your
That's
protagonist, your
good.
speaker, but also think about everyone else that's appearing. Everyone has their own motivations.
If you gave your poem to somebody, do they require the picture that you have in your head to survive?
Get a better understanding of the motivations for your character. Like, why are they doing what they're doing in your story? It also brings to mind, there's an author, I think it's Charles Baxter. He wrote The Art of Subtext. One of the things he's talking about is even not just about your main characters, your protagonists, and your speaker, but also the other characters as well. The other characters that are appearing, because it's very easy to create these flat characters that when the scene leaves them, they kind of, it's like they're like robots, and when the scene's over, you flip the switch and they just kind of like just like turn off, whereas like I think the example he gave was like, for instance, let's say you have a character who's working in an office. They come into the office one day, and one of the side characters, not a main character, you may only have like appear in a couple scenes, but the main character walks in and sees the side character digging a hole in their cubicle. It's like, what? Because it's like a weird thing, but it shows that the side characters also have their own motivations. They have their own worlds that they're inhabiting too, so also trying to not just think about, the main character, your protagonist, your speaker, but also think about everyone else that's appearing. Everyone has their own motivations, and the more that you can make that come to life, I think the more it can make whatever you're working on also come to life too. Third thing I would say is that, let me give an example. Let's say in your poem, you introduced the concept of you introduced a mother. So there's a mother in your poem. And then you assume that because I use the word mother, all of my associations with mother are universal. So like, my mom and I, we had a great relationship, very loving. She would always help me out. She was always there for me. So I'm assuming that all that weight, all my associations with my mom are your associations with your mom, or your associations with your mom, or your associations with your mom. I don't know about you, but I have enough friends that are not on speaking terms with their moms.
Yeah, man.
That may or may not know them, that have all kinds of dynamics. And so when we introduce characters and we introduce symbols, it's very easy for us to believe that all those things that we assume are universal, when the reality is it's not enough to just say the word mom. You're going to have to, in your poem, you're going to have to individualize that character if you want your reader to start generating some of that emotional weight that you want them to carry throughout your work.
Yeah. One of the things that I think about a lot is like when you're writing, and then subsequently, like if you do perform it, when you're performing your piece, a lot of times like you're seeing your poem like the TV show episode that it is, right? Dude, let's say you and your mom did have a terrible relationship. So maybe when you are talking about the relationship between a mother and a child, it's like, to you, it's kind of default that there is some angst or frustration or dissonance there. But because you're experiencing it, but you're not expressing it, it's not going to come through in the poem. I mean, there's other mediums, like in a visual medium, like in a painting or a drawing, even, like, you can convey things visually that are kind of underneath the surface that, you can have, like maybe even like with an ekphrastic poem, like you can be slight bit more vague, and you can maybe not describe those things and just have the parent and the child in that picture. You can really do something with it, which is just to say that in that case, the poem couldn't live without the picture. If you gave your poem to somebody, would they be able to pull some of the concepts or pull some of the temperaments between these people out that you're attempting to express, or do they require the picture that you have in your head to survive?
What are the implications for the speaker in your poem? What are the implications for the reader? Why do we care about them? This is something that I think a lot of like action movies, an issue they have. There's a bad guy who wants to destroy the world, or there's a bad guy who wants to take over a city. But the problem with that is, this kind of goes back to some of our earlier points too. Like, what's the motive? Why does the bad guy want to do this?
Yeah.
But it's not even just that. It's like, well, why do we care if he does or he doesn't do it? Like, there's other stakes too. Because I mean, hey, maybe he's maybe you make a really good leader. Like, all right.
Jeff's like, let's hear him out. Let's hear this guy out. You made some pretty good points.
Opportunity. Let him shoot his shot.
In this job market, let him go.
But this is these are the types of questions that, if you ever see an action movie and you feel bored, I think one of the reasons this often happens is because the stakes aren't clear enough.
Stakes are kind of a combination of the event and the timing, right?
Mhm.
So it's not just that something can happen. It's that something is happening right now, and then there's reasons for the trajectory of events that are happening. For instance, I don't know, did you see Oppenheimer yet?
I have not.
One of the things about Oppenheimer that, again, kind of, and it's a documentary, right? So it's like, I'm not like, spoiler alert, the bomb, they did the bomb twice. That's not, it wasn't okay, but like, just if you haven't seen the movie, just, it did happen. But yeah, so once there is a paper that was published, and once the paper was published, it was like every scientist, every physicist that read that paper understood what that paper meant. The trajectory from here to a bomb is certain. Now it's just a matter of who gets there first, because whoever can make this thing first, that is the world power, right? So it's like if nobody else has fire and then you have fire mysteriously and you're the only one that can make fire, it's like you're the guy. Okay, well, let's listen to whatever you say. It's not a non-specific window of time. It's not a matter of we just really want to make this invention. It's like, no, you have to make the invention and you have to do it before somebody else that would want to do it.
You also want to be thinking about different levels of stakes as well. A lot of times these are kind of motivations. This is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You guys may have seen this in your intro to psych classes however long ago. But this is actually really helpful for determining stakes as well, because in general, the lower down the pyramid you go, the more visceral the reaction from people, because in general, for the hierarchy, you need to satisfy the low level before moving on to the next level in general. So, once your food and your hunger and your thirst situation is solved, then you be like, okay, I need to find like some shelter. And once you find some shelter, you're like, hey, I want to be in this shelter with someone. And like, as you do that, you're like, hey, I want to feel more comfortable with myself. And it's like, hey, I don't just want to feel comfortable with myself. I want to actually start achieving some goals that I have. These higher level ones can certainly work, but the one of the potential issues is that the higher up you go, the more isolating it can be. Because if someone is struggling with a physiological need, it can be harder for them to connect with. I don't connect with this character. Like, what do I care if they get the job promotion?
Yeah.
Why do I connect with that? I'm trying to put food on my table. Like, I have no connection with this dude up here. And this is very fluid. We're constantly kind of bouncing around this thing. But in general, the lower the level, I don't want to say like the more you connect, but like it's kind of like almost like a deeper connection in some ways. Can be the case. So this can also be helpful for stakes. Like when you're trying to decide on your character, be like, okay, what need am I solving? Am I solving a belonging need? Am I solving something related to the character's safety? They're feeling they're afraid for their life, or is it something that they're trying to achieve like a higher purpose? And the better you can understand that motivation for your character, the better you can have an understanding of what the stakes actually are.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, you, even when it comes to those stakes, it can hyperbolize the feeling of those stakes on each individual level. Because I would make the argument that, the physiological level is the one that creates the most dire circumstances. But if you are, really invested, you can write that crap out of like self-actualization. You know what I'm saying? Like, like you could, some would make the argument that that's the only, but that's, that's neither here nor there. But remember those little M&M tubes?
I do.
The tubes of M&M, like tubes of M&M. So I would have, whenever I would get one of those, I would like save up change that I found and I would put it inside that little tube, right? I lost it and I like fell apart. I was like, oh my, like my world, like I felt like I was like just like torn apart. Like I was like really, really, but it's like perspective wise, it's like the way my parents reacted to it was like, okay, it's not clearly not that big of a deal. But to a child,
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
that to me, that was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe
Mhm.
it. I lost all my money. But it's like my parents are just like, okay, like he's gonna be fine. He just has
Mhm.
to get kind of whatever the stakes are at any of those levels. I mean, if your goal isn't that, if your goal is to really kind of enrich the stakes at any level, like you can absolutely do that. Like the esteem part, it like the esteem level is not something that is so small and so insignificant that you can't write about the depth that it could be in losing that. And you can hyperbolize it to a physiological kind of degree. If you can't eat or you don't have like you don't have sustenance, you don't know where the next meal or whatever, like that's clearly going to create
Mhm.
some more immediate stakes than, man, are they gonna reply to my DMs? Do they love me? You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
it's like, you can really hyperbolize it. And I kind of I think it kind of gives it some interesting flavor.
You look at a lot of, like, for instance, like childhood trauma situations, and a lot of
Yeah.
times, not obviously not every time, but a lot of times, those situations come from a disconnect between, for instance, parents and kids. A minor
Yeah.
what the parents view as a minor situation, that's actually a very major one to the child, and like the lack. I mean, this is why empathy is really, people who are empathetic to situations are often people who have gone through the situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, they remember that time. Oh, I was there. I know what that was like. I know how you're feeling right now. And I know that when I was in that situation, I did not get what I was looking for. And I don't want that to happen to you.